and welcome to Comics with Jose. My name is Jose. I love comics and I want to share them with you. Follow me on Twitter at Art of J Velez, on Instagram at jvelez622. We're going to review some comics that I like, that I love, and some that I don't like or love. I own all the comic books that I am showing. Even though we're going to be looking at them digitally, I actually have copies of every single comic book that we are going to review. Like and subscribe, and thanks for listening. Welcome back, everyone. Thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to come listen to me ramble on about my favorite subject, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comics, and I want to share them with you. I was originally going to do John Byrne's run into one video, but I decided to split it into two. Most people, may not want to listen to a very long video, so I divided the first four issues by themselves, so 247 through 250 are in a group, and then I'm going to do the last five issues of 251 through 255 in this video. So you can go, if this is the first one, just stop it, and like I said, this would be the second one covering John Byrne's brief run. He only did 9 issues. So here we have a really good cover of Batroc being defeated by Captain America, but behind him, who is this? Well, we'll have to see inside if you haven't seen it. Covers by John Byrne and Joseph Rubinstein, and they do the art on the inside. So Captain America is looking out, most likely from Brooklyn, because that's where he lives, and looking into Manhattan. From the credits here, John Byrne is not co-plotting this, so he's simply just the penciler with Roger Stern as the writer. So there's a lot of thinking, kind of giving you a background on his origin. Jim Shooter had decreed during this time that comic books needed to be each comic book needed to be accessible to new readers. So once in a while they just kind of did this, the origin of Captain America, or partial of the origin, at least how he was found here. So the Submariners had attacked a couple of Eskimos, and inside a piece of ice was Steve Rogers, and he threw it into the water. And then when the water got warm, Steve Rogers was exposed, and he was found by the Avengers and Iron Man, Thor, and Giant Man slash Ant-Man. Depends on who he was during this time. And he joined the Avengers, and just showing some of the stuff he had done. So Red Skull and the Falcon. And of course his true love, Sharon Carter. So he kind of, there's a lot of dialogue. Some of the things that comic books don't have now is they do read too fast. They don't have enough dialogue, but back then they had quite a bit. So you just kind of gotta pick gotta find a happy medium. But there's a lot of explaining of what he's doing when the pictures themselves could just show you what he's doing without. But here's a boat and a barge, and they're approaching Rikers Island, and they get a little gizmo here, and it's gonna throw like an EMP, and the place is gonna go black. So there's no lights, so off they go. They get rid of the guards. So they're looking for one cell, and all these people went out, and they're like, nope, we're just here for one. So they open it up, and they're looking for Mr. Hyde. So they're carrying him out. And in the barge, he wakes up to see that Batroc had helped him out, and Mr. Hyde's impressed, and they brought Mr. Hyde his clothes. He asked for the $5 million that he had promised whoever freed him. He says there's no such thing, and so these two kind of have a little brief fight, but Mr. Hyde kind of convinces him to join him into a plan of his. And Batroc really has no choice because Mr. Hyde pretty much beats him. So he doesn't want to fight him. So he's going to go ahead and join Mr. Hyde because there's a much larger price. So now we're in the next day or in the morning, and if you remember, Steve Rogers, during this time, his alter ego, he was a designer, a graphic artist of some kind, which is no longer. He doesn't do that anymore. So I don't think Steve Rogers does anything. He's Captain America pretty much all the time. So in comes Byrne. So Steve, or Byrne, sees that Steve worked all night because he hasn't shaved or anything. So she says she'll make him some breakfast to go, get ready for the day. And says, "Oh my goodness, you don't have any real food. It's all instant." And it's because he travels a lot, so he doesn't want stuff to spoil. Here he is shaving. And then she's gonna ask if she can put music, and then sees that Steve only has old stuff from back in the old days, and just like her dad, and sees this picture of a woman there. She asks who she is, thinking it's maybe perhaps a sister. Then he lets him know it's Sharon Carter, who had died. Now, backing it up, at that time she was presumed dead, but later they said that they faked her death because they sent her undercover by Nick Fury. So, but that's later on for another time. But at this time, she was presumed dead, and Steve just cared very much about her, and she knows. So she changes the subject and asks if he heard about the break out in Rikers, and he thinks it's Cobra, who was from Spectacular Spider-Man, who I believe Roger Stern was also writing at that time. So kind of fitting stuff together. And now it turns out that it was Mr. Hyde, and he wanted to do something, but he decides no, he hasn't slept. He has a job to do, and that there's other heroes out there that can handle it. So they have breakfast, and they just kind of start talking. And so now Steve is going to work, and again, he doesn't do this anymore. So, but back then, your secret identity had to do something. So he's going into Manhattan in the subway, and the guy's listening to a radio. So that's what this is, and he suspects that it's Batroc. So here's his boss, and he's got some stuff in his mind. He figures out it's Batroc, so he's gonna go into the janitor's closet and change into Captain America. And he goes up the stairs to. He's gonna go into the DA's office, so off he goes. And everyone, he just mundane stuff. It's kind of fun. You just don't see the comic books nowadays sort of doing that. And this is the DA's secretary, and he asked to see the DA if he's not busy. So, and a coloring mistake. This should have been red right here, but so back to Batroc. So here's an oil tanker by the name of the Queen of Egypt from Roxxon, who's a made-up company, kind of like Exxon. It's supposed to be the big oil company. and they're heading into New York, and the sailors are all screaming, kind of like being all wild, and he puts on the binoculars, and it's uh, Madame Madame Monique, I think it is, and she says, "You've been boarded," and the captain's like, "What?" And Batroc is behind him, and Mr. Hyde discharges all his people, and they let you know they came aboard little sub, and I love Dry Brush. It's pretty cool. And they're basically going to ask for $1 billion, and if not, they're going to set the tanker to explode in New York Harbor, and they know the loss of life will be big, and so he calls the district attorney, who's right there, who tells Captain America he was right, and they want a hostage. And turns out the hostage they want is Captain America, who happened to be there. So off he goes. Captain America doesn't know why they wanted him as a hostage, but he agrees to it. Lets them all go. They board. There's the gold, and um, he presses a button which releases gas, knocks out all the guards, but it doesn't knock Mr. Hyde. Batroc tries to fight him. Captain America punches him out, and then here comes Mr. Hyde. He punches him in the face because that worked before. It says here Captain America 152, but Mr. Hyde has changed, and he starts to pummel him. And for some reason, Batroc stops him and says, "Hey, you're gonna kill him." And then he's like, you shouldn't do that like a common thug. And so Mr. Hyde says he's right. So they're going to instead ram him into New York, which I go, well, why don't you just, I don't know. It's comic books, I guess. Don't overthink it. But so Cap is heading into New York to get um, killed, apparently. So okay, so now we are going to be looking at 252. It's another cover by John Byrne with Rubinstein. And it's a pretty cool one. The Cap being thrown off the boat here by Batroc. And then, of course, Mr. Hyde in there. So, and pretty much picks off where we left off with Captain America about to slam into the harbor. Now, like last month, the credits, Roger Stern is just the writer. John Byrne no longer is co-plotting. So this is all Roger Stern with Rubinstein inking. And Rubinstein is an inker, like I said, that I like him as an inker because he creates those beautiful thick lines. He uses a brush, doesn't use a pen. So, and it's a pretty cool splash page here. Byrne, like I said, it was still in his I wouldn't quite say his beginnings, but he's still not the guy that went into Fantastic Four. He's still, you know, um, he's been in the probably maybe 10 years working, and this dude, of course, is legendary now. John Byrne is one of the greatest. And if you're gonna have a Mount Rushmore of comic book artists, um, he's top 10. He's top 10 because he has accomplished very, very, very much. So, and so Mr. Hyde wants to destroy the shield, but of course the shield is made out of adamantium and vibranium, so he's not able to do it. So he throws it and tells Batroc that there's still lots to do. Let's go to the bridge. But if you notice here, Batroc is kicking the anchor chain release. So it gives Captain America a few feet more so he can maybe perhaps try and escape. So it's obvious Batroc doesn't want to work with Mr. Hyde. So Captain America starts to pull using all his strength and finds a weak spot in the chain and is able to be released. And so now he needs to pull the other one, and he remembers what they told him, that the um, ship here from Roxxon has a small nuclear device, and if it explodes, it'll destroy New York. Um, and Captain America just does not want to allow that. So he thinks of that to give him the strength then to get out. But then he hits his head and goes down. So, but we all know he's not dead because, hey, he's still around. So now we're kind of getting into the end game as to why everything's happening here. Mr. Hyde, by the way, considers him an associate, not a partner, and Batroc is a little miffed about that. And Hyde is saying how Captain America had defeated him, and he ended up having to go to jail. And he befriended the Cobra from the Serpent Squad, and he was able to get out of jail, but did not free Hyde. And Hyde swore vengeance, so he's actually going to use that small nuclear device to destroy New York because he knows Cobra's in there, so he wants to destroy the whole city just to get one person. Batroc says, stealing from a corporation like Roxxon is one thing, but mass murder is not something that he wants to have a part of. So he begins to fight Mr. Hyde, but he's no match, despite how strong his legs are. But Batroc, like I said, does not want mass murder. So some of the henchmen here pull Captain America's shield, and you can see the hand here of Captain America. And here he goes, disposes the henchman, and he's going to climb up to the ship, where he sees Batroc and Mr. Hyde fighting, and Mr. Hyde is gonna be victorious, but he throws his shield, hitting him, allowing Batroc a chance to escape. And Hyde is wondering how he escaped, and of course, Batroc confesses that he helped him escape. So, which makes Hyde even more mad. So Captain America and Mr. Hyde are fighting, and Batroc joins in. It was Batroc's idea to have Captain America as a hostage because he knew Hyde couldn't be trusted. So he knew that Captain America would be able to defeat him, and so the two fight. And Hyde knocks off Batroc. Captain America hits him with the shield, helps Batroc out, and he's going to use this as a weapon, but of course it's a high pressure stream of liquefied natural gas, which engulfs Mr. Hyde, and he falls overboard. Captain America goes to try to save him, but he's unable to. And here it just tells you that Batroc has escaped, so it doesn't really show you, it just kind of tells you here. And so he's getting away with Roxxon's money. And he's celebrating, but all of a sudden, boom, something's up, so he goes to sea, and his barge is sinking, And of course, Captain America is in his in the little sub, and so he has to give back the $1 million. So thus endeth our story. It was very short, 17 pages. So what we have is a little featurette here about the Captain America. So kind of like another cover here, you could say, an action pose. You got the Avengers behind him, or some, you got Spider-Man here, and you got the Falcon here. So starts off with a brief origin of Captain America, and shows you his apartment. It's amazing the stuff that they got John Byrne to draw. So, and some of his friends and neighbors, and then his partners against crime. And I love this part here. This is our last page. The Avengers, and here's a note saying, "Dear Roger, if you think I'm going to draw all of the Avengers, every single member, and all of the various hangers on this little space, you can think again, John Byrne." So this is pretty cool. So now we're at 253. We're nearing to the last 3 issues. So John Byrne had a short run. Great cover by Byrne and Rubenstein. I think they used white media here to create this. I think this was all black, and then he probably used some white to get these things here. I do like how they constructed this cover, so it's very cool. So we know we're gonna be dealing with some kind of undead, so possibly a vampire. So it's a very ominous cover, very good, and it's a different kind of cover. So we are in London, and they have found a third victim, a third girl that has passed or been killed here. John Byrne is returning as co-plotter for this part here, and so Roger Stern probably scripts, and John Byrne is the penciler, with Rubenstein as your inker. So they surmise that she died quickly, but they don't know who is killing these people, or these girls particularly. And so they go into a nearby manor where Lady Crichton is. She had not retired for bed, and she had asked to be kept in the loop with these killings so she could make sure Scotland Yard does their duty. And you can see there's someone up there. And they ask about her father, who's the person that's up there. And she says he's still stubborn, but doing better with the medicine. And he says he knows who it is, and he's told them, but nobody's listening. And the only person that can stop him is an ocean away. So we know who he's referring to. And so, of course, we got New York. And in New York, we have a robbery going on. And you can see here Captain America is coming up. And he disposes of one of the robbers and chases the other one, throws his shield. Now, notice it's the back, but hits him in the front. So we'll assume that it's not a mistake, but rather the shield probably bounced off something else. So we'll just pretend with that. And so he knocks him out, pulls out a gun. Captain America tells him that he doesn't, he can avoid the gun. So, and gives the guy a chance to give up, which he does. And then the man who he robbed, will wait until the police arrive and take the gentleman away in handcuffs. So Steve gets away, or Captain America gets away. He's going to change now back into Steve because he has a date this evening, and he had left his clothes. Um, he's going to have a chance to enjoy the night as Steve. So Steve is going on his date with Byrne to watch a musical, Oklahoma. And after Oklahoma, they're up for a nightcap. He brings some coffee. She tells him, that he's very old fashioned and, she doesn't quite understand who he is, of course. But they are about to kiss when the phone rings. And for you newer people, this is what phones used to look like in the 80s. And so he picks up the phone, and it's Jarvis saying that there is a um, message that was delivered to him. Jarvis is the butler to the Avengers. And he reads the code, and Steve hasn't heard it since World War II. She asks what it's about, and he says he has to go to England on personal business. He apologizes, and um, Steve feels bad that he had to interrupt this, and she feels bad because she made the boyfriend story up. So, you know, that's the thing, he's a superhero, she doesn't know, and so we have a Concorde. And for those of you who don't know, Concorde was a jet that would fly supersonically and could get to from the United States to England or to France in just a few hours. So Steve is now remembering his time with the invaders during World War II, who was the original Human Torch, the Submariner, and of course him. And they were joined by Union Jack and is it Spitfire? I think was her name, who was that um, lady? I think, if I remember correctly, the rich lady. Anyway, and these are some of the enemies that they fought. I love this name, Asbestos Lady. Masterman and Warrior Woman make a comeback when John Byrne takes over the Submariner in the 90s. And so they're about to land, and he puts on his hat so they won't recognize him, and instead of a passport, he shows the Avengers priority clearance, so they let him go. I should have one of these. And so he goes to the Falsworth Manor and sees Jacqueline, and she's can't believe he looks exactly the same as she remembers because he was in suspended animation. She of course feels terrible because she's so much older and he's so much younger. And he's asking about that telegram or cable they sent. She says she didn't send one, but of course he did. This is the dude that was Union Jack in with the invaders, and he says it's been Baron Blood, and she's like, Baron Blood is dead, and Union Jack says no, he is not. So, and tells Steve he needs to go check it out because he believes him. So he goes to the coroner, and because he's the one that's been inspecting the victims, and he asks if it could be a vampire, which of course he reacts very badly, says that's superstitious, and tells Steve to get out. Steve, of course, knows better, and we uh, we get a little bit of why he's so cranky. The doctor. There had been a bit of a vampire scare, and they thought the vampire was hiding in his home, the doctor's home. So they torched the place, and unfortunately, they didn't know that his daughter was inside, and so the doctor was burned, so he grows his beard to cover some of the scars. But his daughter died, and so he is gonna go see if he can find um, where Baron Blood was or is being kept. So you can see all these crucifixes. You can see garlic, clovers, so all the stuff you expect from vampires. And he says this isn't him. He can recognize the from the skeleton. And another coroner says, "Yep, it's the skeleton of an old woman who's been dead about 12 years." Captain America just says that it didn't look correct. It didn't look right. So, um, so off he goes back to the manor. So he arrives, and these are this is the son of Lady Crichton and one of his friends. And Captain America says hi. If you notice, there's a lot of filler in these issues with all these dialogues, and which you don't normally see nowadays, but definitely very wordy compared to a modern comic book, for sure. So Captain America tells him that um, Baron Blood is alive, and he, of course, says it's time to get rid of, to kill him once and for all. Baron Blood is his brother, um, and he's the one who is responsible for him losing his legs. So he's gonna go have a one-on-one with Captain America. He tells him that his family thinks that he's crazy, but he knows that he's not, and they're gonna come up with a plan. And he's very thankful Steve did come. So night falls, and of course there's Baron Blood, and he notices that Steve left his window open, and that he stayed in the same room where he stayed during World War II. And real quick, beautiful panel. I really like the shadows here. So he's going to break Captain America's neck, but of course, Captain America was ready. Hits him with his shield, and they start fighting. Baron Blood, of course, is very strong. Captain America throws garlic on him because it's a repugnant smell to them. Turns into mist, like all vampires do. And the fight startles Lord Falsworth, and he's going to use his hypnotic trance to put Captain America into a trance, and he's going to make him into a vampire. Thus ends the issue. So we have 2 issues to go. So 254, which is the conclusion of this story. This is one of the more iconic Captain America covers, done by Byrne and Rubinstein. This issue is actually the one that made me want to buy the whole John Byrne run of Captain America. So we start off where we left off, where he's going to bite Captain America. and everybody watches in horror. Here are your credits of Stern and Byrne as the co-plotters, with Stern as the scripter and John Byrne as the penciler. Rubenstein is the inker. I like Rubenstein as an inker. Like I said, I love the brush. I love the thick black lines. And as he's about to bite Captain America, we get a little bit of a recap of the previous issue in a couple of panels. And he bites, but of course, Captain America wears armor, and he is not able to bite him. He basically gets out of the trance, and they begin to fight again. The kids come into the protection of his family. Baron Blood grabs him, throws him back at Cap. Suddenly the sun's coming out, and like vampire lore, it's not good for them. So he needs to escape before the sun destroys him, so he turns into a bat. As Captain America was trying to catch him, he uses his acrobats and lands safely. And so Captain America is just kind of puzzled because this dude appears in after Baron Blood and accuses him of something, kind of being part of that whole thing. He, of course, is not. Ken vouches for him. And so we kind of get at the origin of Baron Blood in a couple of panels. How he had discovered Dracula's tomb. Dracula turns him into a vampire. He joins the Nazis. And he bit, of course, Jacqueline, but is saved by the transfusion of the Human Torch, who happens to be an android, so I don't know. It's comics, I guess. Don't overthink things. The powers make her Spitfire, and so like I said, we just get a bit of the origin here. So, and here comes, of course, the Baron Blood, and we see here that he was actually the one who was the doctor, and Dr. Cromwell. So it's a good disguise when he gets a call. So we know something's up now. Tells her to come in, and she's shown up just in time for breakfast. And so now they have to go find Baron Blood because he's weakest during the day. And everybody's going to search throughout. They believe that he's in a particular area. So everybody's going to search high and low for him. But there's no trace of him. And later that day, at a bar, the waitress slips, and they take her to see. They take that off, and they see that she has bite marks on her neck. And so now we go back to New York. So in Brooklyn, they're Bernie and I don't know. I really don't know who she is. Mrs. Kappelbaum are cleaning Steve's apartment when she answers the phone for him. This is Steve's boss, who had a job for him, but because Steve's not there, he's going to give it to somebody else. And so she tells, they kind of talk about it a little bit, but it's a story for another day. So, Captain America is running to Lord Falsworth, who's changed into his Union Jack outfit, and his daughter sees it and thinks, wonder if she could be Spitfire. I think she also returns during Byrne's Namor run, and he's gets like a stroke. They call Dr. Cromwell, tells everyone to leave. We all know who Dr. Cromwell is. And so now's the time to pay his brother back. But Union Jack um, had a knife to defend himself, and even in his weakened state, is able to fight back. He begins to fight Baron Blood. We can tell that, you know, this dude doesn't behave like an old man, so we'll find out why. And so Captain America comes in, sees the two fighting, joins in. Baron Blood is trying to get away. Captain America won't let him, throwing the shield at him. Union Jack goes for the kill. Baron Blood decides to confront him. Captain America grabs the curtains and lets the sun in. And so he goes to attack Captain America, who hits him with the shield. And Captain America has no choice. Ups his shield and decapitates the vampire. And we see now, after the death of Baron Blood, that it wasn't the grandpa that was in the Union Jack. It was his grandson. And so Steve's a bit rattled. And so they burn Baron Blood's body, and Lord Falsworth, I think. The original Union Jack, we'll just call him that. He has also passed on. And we kind of end with, the new Union Jack. So we have one more issue to go. It's very unfortunate that the run didn't last very long, but these few issues, like I said, they're pretty good. So I strongly recommend getting them. So this is the last issue of John Byrne and Roger Stern's run, a very brief run. The cover is by Frank Miller with Joseph Rubinstein in the inks. I think Joseph Rubinstein really complements Frank Miller's style, similar to the way Klaus Janson does. You can see Frank Miller does really well with the thick brush strokes that these inkers give him. So this is essentially an origin issue. Okay, so it's just going to give you the origin of Captain America. So Roger Stern is the writer and John Byrne is the artist, so he's doing both the pencils and the inks. It does seem here by the credits that Joe Rubinstein may have done an ink here or there, but this is all mostly John Byrne, who also works with the brush. John Byrne is best when he's inked himself. So again, we're just going to go over, we're not going to spend too much time on it. We all know his origin. His origin hasn't really changed. He's a weakling who wanted to join the army. He wasn't accepted because he's so weak, but undergoes an experiment which turns him into Captain America. Like I said, you can definitely tell when John Byrne inks himself. Much, it's a different thing, but he's best when he does everything himself. So, and of course, the guy who created the serum ends up dying, so nobody can copy it. And so, like I said, it's a very quick issue. It's just pretty much his origin of how he becomes Captain America. This was his 40th anniversary during this time. So, like I said, we're moving quickly, just enjoying John Byrne's art, who is a phenomenal artist. And here is where he gets his new shield. You remember that old style costume here, it's more to what he wears now. And so he ends up joining the army. And he kind of pretended to not be a very good soldier. And that was done on purpose. So a good cover. Great two-page spread by Byrne. And we're kind of now in modern times here. And thus endeth the issue. Good way kind of to wrap up the run. So hope you liked this as a good 4th of July video. The John Byrne run in Captain America. Like, follow, and subscribe. Thanks for listening.